สวัสดีค่ะขอต้อนรับทุกท่านเลยนะคะเข้าสู่ The Coaching Journey ค่ะสำหรับใน EP นี้นะคะเป็น EP ที่5แล้วค่ะที่เรามาเจอกันแล้วก็มาแลกเปลี่ยนนะคะความรู้เนาะแล้วก็เนื้อหาดีๆมากมายเลยค่ะสำหรับในวันนี้นะคะเช่นเคยค่ะโค้ชนัญญานะคะก็รับหน้าที่เป็นผู้อำนวยการเรียนรู้นะคะเป็น Moderator นะคะของเนื้อหาในวันนี้เช่นเคยค่ะสำหรับในวันนี้นะคะ EP 5ของเราค่ะที่จะพูดถึงกันนั้นก็คือ keeping our coaching conversation on track and effective นั่นเองนะคะแค่ฟังชื่อหัวข้อก็น่าสนใจมากนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นตอนนี้นะคะท่านไหนที่มาแล้วค่ะทักทายกันมาได้เลยนะคะหรือจะส่งหัวใจมาก็ได้นะคะสวัสดีนะคะสวัสดีพี่ตุ๊กด้วยนะคะนี่นะคะแล้วก็สวัสดีนะคะเมื่อกี้นัญญาเห็นมีหลายท่านเลยสวัสดีพี่ตุ๊กนะคะสวัสดีคุณพิมพ์ใจนะคะแล้วก็วันนี้ย่าเห็นหลายท่านเลยคุณใหญ่ใช่ไหมคะสวัสดีคุณใหญ่ด้วยนะคะทักทายกันเข้ามาได้เลยนะคะคุณวีรศักดิ์ด้วยขอบคุณมากเลยวันนี้เรามาร่วมเรียนรู้นะคะแลกเปลี่ยนร่วมกันนั่นเองนะคะวันนี้บอกเลยว่าเนื้อหาอัดแน่นมากนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเริ่ม2 ทุ่มนะคะจริงๆแต่ว่าเรา2 ทุ่มเราให้ชมคลิปอะไรกันไปก่อนนะคะเดี๋ยวเราจะเริ่มกันเลยนะคะ Alright, so good evening, everyone. Please welcome to our AP5, the coaching journey. And today, I am Nanya. Will be my pleasure to be a moderator today as well. For today's topic, we are going to talk about keeping our coaching conversation on track and effective. So it's going to be very interesting. And if you would like to know what is Coach so don't miss that นะคะเดี๋ยววันนี้เราจะมาเรียนรู้ร่วมกันนั่นเองค่ะแล้วก็ตอนนี้นะคะเพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลาค่ะเดี๋ยวขออนุญาตแนะนำวิทยากรนะคะที่จะมาร่วมแลกเปลี่ยนนะคะความรู้กับเราในวันนี้นะคะก็คือโค้ชทอมนั่นเองค่ะหลายท่านน่าจะรู้จักโค้ชทอมกันเป็นอย่างดีนะคะท่านก็คือเป็นPCC Assessor นะคะเป็นโค้ชที่เรียกว่าอยู่ในส่วนของ ICF นั่นเองเนาะแล้วก็เป็นผู้สอนนะคะของ Level PCC นั่นเองนะคะ so alright now tonight I would like to welcome once again Coach Tom เย้เชิญโค้ชทอมเลยค่ะ
Hello, Coach Nanya.
Hello.
Very nice to see you again. How are
Yes,
you?
very nice.
How are you today?
I should say I'm good, right?
You can be honest.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine. I'm
Right.
fine. Thank you. By the
Great,
way,
great.
tonight is going to be a very interesting topic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this evening. I think it's so important to be able to connect and stay connected with our client throughout our conversation. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we might be able to do that.
Right. Yes.
Have you help me to make sure everything is clear?
Yeah. Okay. My pleasure. เอาล่ะค่ะเดี๋ยวขออนุญาตเดี๋ยวเราเริ่มสไลด์กันเลย So can we turn on the slide?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay ค่ะ
Great. So for tonight, we're talking about how to keep our coaching conversation on track and effective as well. And there's many important reasons for that. So I think we can just move forward and start up now.
Yeah, sure. เดี๋ยวไปหน้าถัดไปได้เลยค่ะ All right. Yes.
Great. So yeah. All right. So thinking about, why it's important in the first place, there's quite a few different reasons, as a responsible coach who really wants to connect and communicate and work with and find effective ways to work with our client. It's important that we keep a lot of different things in mind about that. First, keeping things on track really is all about creating a strong connection with the coachee. That requires so many different things, that of course we need to have good coaching presence. We need to be focused on the client. We need to, do many things, with our coaching skills to make sure that we can keep that strong connection. It's also important that we can ensure that our session is productive, right? We don't want to have a session where we are kind of wandering around in the conversation, it might be they have I've heard this many times, from coach trainers. They talk about, is it an interesting conversation or is it a useful conversation, right?
อื
Uh,
ม
it's nice to have interesting conversations. We can learn many things. I love going and seeing my friends and having coffee and talking about all kinds of things. It can be very interesting. But for our coaching session, it should be useful. It should be something that our client can take with them as they're learning. So just making sure that we are productive. Also, staying on track means that we can probably go to deeper levels with our coachee than if we are spending half the time trying to figure out where are we in this conversation right now. If we are really connected, we can spend that time to go deeper, and that will help us to generate what I like to call as a laser focus in our coaching. And when we are both really focused on what we want to do, it creates that focus that can help us move quicker and be more impactful in our coaching as well. And then finally, of course, I always like to say, um, you know, having a good coaching session is great. Exploring and being creative and having fun, of course, I think that's really important. But the most important thing is that we can help our coachee get results. And if we are very connected and kind of organized and in sync with what we're doing, we'll have a much better chance of helping our client to get the results that they want. So these are kind of some of the main ideas about, how it's important to keep things on track in our coaching.
I love the word useful session.
Yes,
yeah
useful.
yeah ขอบคุณค่ะนะคะก็สำหรับหน้านี้นะคะจริงๆโค้ชทอมก็อธิบายค่ะว่าจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยการที่เราต้อง make sure ว่าเรานะคะกับ client เนี่ยเรายังอยู่ด้วยกันหรือเปล่านะคะมันสำคัญยังไงเนาะอย่างที่บอกค่ะมันก็จะเป็นการที่จะสร้าง connection นะคะระหว่างเรากับโคชชี่เนี่ยเรียกว่าจับทั้งมือแล้วก็จับทั้งใจนะคะรวมไปถึงว่ามันก็จะทำให้การโค้ชในเซสชันนั้นนะคะมันคำว่า productive ด้วยแล้วก็ useful นะคะในการโค้ชเนี่ยเราจะไม่ใช้คำว่า interesting session นะคะคือจะไม่ได้เป็นแค่เซสชันที่น่าสนใจนะคะแต่ว่าเซสชันนั้นมันมีประโยชน์ยังไงกับลูกค้ากับ client ของเรานะคะแล้วก็สามารถลงไปได้ลึกลงไปในความเป็นตัวตนของเขานะคะได้อย่างไรบ้างแล้วก็มันgenerate ในเรื่องของ impact นะคะทำให้เขาเห็นอะไรบ้างนะคะรวมไปถึงแน่นอนค่ะสุดท้ายเลยนะคะมันจะต้องมีในเรื่องของผลลัพธ์นะคะมีผลลัพธ์ที่ออกมามี result ที่ออกมาจากการโค้ชในครั้งนั้นๆ alright thank you very much
Sure. Yeah. So this kind of like lets
ค่ะ
us know what we're going to be looking at tonight.
yeah ค่ะ okay now เดี๋ยวขออนุญาตไปหน้าถัดไปเลยค่ะ
Great. So I like to always usually start with a connection to the core competencies, and I think that this actually this topic relates quite directly to competency 3, which is all about establishing and maintaining agreements. And I always like to tell my coach students that there are 2 parts to establishing and maintaining agreement, and they're actually both very important for us to be able to make that connection with our client. Make sure that we are very clear and certain about what we are doing together. So the first 5 sub-competencies of establishing and maintaining agreement talk about how do we make sure that before we even start coaching, we have created a relationship that is very clear and open. So, looking at number 1, that we can be able to explain what coaching is and what coaching is not, right? Just to make sure that our client knows what they're getting into. I always say you want to make sure that you're very clear about what you are doing as a coach and you make sure it's very clear what your client is going to be doing as a coachee, and that you're very clear about the process. You need to make sure those 3 things are in place, right? Number two is talking about, well, in our agreement about what we're doing, have we ensured that our client knows what's appropriate and what's not appropriate in the relationship, what's being offered, what's the responsibilities, all of that stuff, right? And three talks about the specific agreement, like the logistics, how much we'll be charging, when we'll be meeting, what if the coachee needs to cancel, things about confidentiality, about how to finish the coaching engagement. Again, these are the big picture things about our coaching, and are very important. And four, just making sure that we can partner with our coachee and create what is our idea about our coaching plan. How many times are we going to be meeting? How often are we going to be meeting? And for how long will we be meeting? What if the client wants to cancel? What is the policy on that? All these different things. And what are the big term goals that we're going to be working on? So these are all very important as well when we are preparing to work with someone in a coaching agreement. And then finally, just making sure with number five um, that as a coach, I am able to relate to the coachee in a way that's going to be productive. Sometimes personalities just don't really match, and we have to be honest when we meet a coachee. If we feel that we're not really the right fit, if possible, we should do our best to maybe find or refer our client to another coach, because speaking from experience, when you start to coach someone and they just don't like match with your style or personality or outlook, it can be a difficult process to coach. It could be hard to create that relationship and that agreement. So these are the five sub-competencies in competency 3 that talk about what we need to take into consideration before we even like start coaching. So yeah.
Okay. That's why we need to like check chemistry first, right? For number
Mm-hmm.
5.
Yeah.
อืม
So important. Yeah, for sure.
I see ขอบคุณค่ะ ก็สำหรับหน้านี้นะคะโค้ชทอมก็เลยขออนุญาตยกนะคะที่เป็น core competency นะคะซึ่งจริง core competency เนี่ยเป็นข้อ3นะคะ establish and maintain agreement คือต้องบอกว่าเป็น stage ที่ตั้งแต่ก่อนเริ่มการโค้ชเลยนะคะนั่นหมายความว่าโค้ชเองอะค่ะต้องอธิบายให้ชัดเจนนะคะว่าการโค้ชเราทำอะไรบ้างและเราไม่ทำอะไรบ้างนะคะอะไรที่ในการที่เราจะสร้างความสัมพันธ์ในการเป็นโค้ชแล้วก็เป็น client นะคะเป็น relationship ที่เราจะจับมือกันไปเป็น partner อย่างเงี้ยค่ะอะไรที่เหมาะสมไม่เหมาะสมนะคะแล้วก็เป็นการอธิบายกันให้ชัดเจนตั้งแต่เริ่มแรกเลยนะคะว่าไม่ว่าจะเป็นในเรื่องของระยะเวลานะคะค่าใช้จ่ายหรือถ้ามันมีเรื่องของการยกเลิกนะคะจะเป็นอย่างไรบ้างนะคะอันนี้คือต้องพูดให้ชัดตั้งแต่ตอนแรกรวมไปถึงนะคะแน่นอนค่ะเป้าหมายต่างๆต้องตกลงกันให้เคลียร์ตั้งแต่แรกเลยนะคะแล้วก็สุดท้ายข้อ5ค่ะเป็นเรื่องเกี่ยวกับเขาเรียกอะไรนะเหมือนเป็น chemistry นะคะเป็น chemical เนาะนะคะว่าถ้าเกิดเรารู้สึกว่าโค้ชนะคะหมายถึงตัวเรานะคะกับ client เนี่ยเรารู้สึกว่ามันไม่ฟิตกันนะคะไม่ได้หมายความว่าถูกหรือผิดนะคะแต่อาจจะเป็นเรื่องของ chemical ที่อาจจะแบบไม่ได้ต้องกันเท่าไหร่นะคะก็สามารถที่จะแนะนำclient นะคะให้ไปลองคุยกับโค้ชท่านอื่นดูได้นะคะอันนี้เป็นหลักสำคัญก่อนเริ่มในการโค้ชเลยนะคะต้องอธิบายให้เข้าใจตรงกันค่ะโอเคขออนุญาตไปหน้าถัดไปได้เลยค่ะ
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Actually, this should say part 2. Sorry about this, but there's like 2 parts. So, sub-competencies 6 through 11. So the 1 through 5 talk, like I said, mostly about what happens before we start coaching. What kind of agreements and understandings do we have of our client before we start our coaching engagement? And then 6 through 11 talk more about now that we're coaching. How do we kind of maintain that agreement, right? So the first one is that we number 6 is that, well, we make sure we're clear about the topic. about the dilemma. We talk back and forth, we explore, we make sure that as a coach, if we have any curiosity about the dilemma that we want to help our client to explore, we do that. It's very important that we do that. And 7 is we help the client to define maybe the things they need to address or resolve to achieve what they want to accomplish. So, for example, if the client says, I always use this example, I don't know why. If the client says they want to lose 2 kilograms in the next month, okay. So, in relation to number 7, I might ask, what might be holding you back from losing that weight? Or what resources or what strengths do you feel you have that may help you as you move forward to lose your 2 kilograms? So we might want to explore something like that. Number 8 is really important, and I talk a lot about this, especially at the PCC level, that we not only have a goal, like, at the ACC level, basically it's okay. Our goal can be, I would like to lose 5 kilograms in the next 2 months. Okay, we can work just with that. But with the PCC level of coaching, number 8 is very important. So we want to be able to quantify what are we looking for by the end of the session? What measures of success will we have? So we might ask our client, so by the end of this session, what do you expect to have? So they might say, oh, okay. So I want to have 3 strategies that are going to help me to exercise more so I can lose my weight. Something like that. We want to have some kind of measure of success. And that's very important at the more advanced coaching levels. Because going back to what I said, creating that laser focus, when we create a really good measure of success, it helps us both to focus much more on the goal in a more specific way. So it's very important to have that. And then 9, of course, we partner with the client to manage the time and focus. That's using direct communication, which we all learn. Like, if our client likes to talk in long stories, or we feel we're getting off track a little bit, that as a coach that is aware and focused, they can bring us back to what we are talking about. They can help us to focus back on the measure of success and make sure that our session remains quite clear and focused as we move forward. And then 10 is like, so we just manage this conversation. We make sure that we're moving in the right direction. But if our client decides they want to go in a different direction, maybe they realize that, oh, maybe it's not, the idea about losing 5 kilograms. Maybe they change their mind and they say, actually, I think I want to focus on my relationship with my meals, that I'm maybe eating too late, or that I'm doing for that. So the focus of the coaching session may go in a different direction, and we should always be very clear about that. So we should say, so Coach Nanya, I seem to hear that you seem to be more interested right now in looking at, like, designing a diet or thinking about your diet rather than losing the weight specifically. Would you like to move in that direction, or would you like to stay with our goal that we set? So you see, you have to be aware of what your client is saying, listen to them carefully, and find out, where is their thinking going? And is it going in a different direction than the agreed on agenda? Then that's okay. We need to clarify that and what we're hearing, and decide which direction we're going to go to. And that's always like, it's up to the coachee, right? Yeah. And then finally, we partner with the client to end the coaching relationship in a way that honors the experience. So this is all about checking in with our client at the end of the session, finding out about their learning, what new ideas came up with them, how they're going to move forward in this goal, and all those things. What kind of support do they need? Do they need to have some kind of accountability in place? Things like that. So just making sure that that we finish the conversation in a complete way where we're honoring all the work our client has gone through, making sure that they are clear and that they can get the results that they want. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was
ขอ
a
บ
lot
คุ
of
ณมาก
talking.
Oh, no worry, that is clear and good.
Okay.
ค่ะ ก็สำหรับหน้านี้นะคะจะเป็นการที่พูดถึงในตอนที่เราทำการโค้ชนะคะว่าในการที่เราwork ร่วมกันกับ client นะคะเราควรต้องทำอะไรบ้างนะคะ as a coach นะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเองเนี่ยอย่างแรกเลยอะค่ะเราจะต้องหาแล้วก็ reconfirm ให้ได้นะคะว่าclient ของเราเนี่ยเขาอยากเห็นผลลัพธ์อะไรนะคะเห็นผลลัพธ์อะไรในเซสชันนั้นๆนะคะแล้วเราก็ต้องช่วยให้เขาอะค่ะเห็นได้อย่างชัดเจนนะคะโดยที่อาจจะต้องเป็นการอย่างที่บอกเนอะมีการเซตในเรื่องของ measure of success นะคะเป็นการที่ช่วยให้เขาช่วยเห็นตัวเองมากขึ้นนะคะว่าจริงๆแล้วเขาอยากได้อะไรนะคะเพราะว่าในเลเวลของ PCC อะค่ะการที่เราใช้การถามคำถามที่เป็นตัวบอกได้ว่าอะไรคุณอยากได้อะไรนะคะอาจจะทำให้ client เนี่ยได้เห็นตัวเองแล้วก็ตั้งเป้าได้ตรงกับสิ่งที่เขาอยากจะได้อยากจะ achieve ได้ตรงจุดมากยิ่งขึ้นนั่นเองนะคะรวมไปถึงค่ะก็ช่วยบริหารในเรื่องของเวลาแล้วก็ยังให้โฟกัสอยู่ในเซสชันนั้นนะคะแต่ว่าจริงๆแล้วค่ะบางครั้งมันก็เกิดขึ้นได้เหมือนกันเหมือนที่โค้ชทอมบอกว่าพอคุยไปแล้วเนี่ยบางที direction หรือเรื่องอาจจะเปลี่ยนนะคะดังนั้นเองเนี่ยคนที่เป็นโค้ชก็ต้องสามารถที่จะเช็คแบ็กกลับได้นะคะว่าเราจะไปยังไงต่อเราจะคุยกันเรื่องไหนต่อนะคะก็สามารถที่จะคุยกับ client ได้เลยเพราะว่าเซสชันนี้เป็นเซสชันของ client นะคะแล้วก็สุดท้ายเลยเนี่ยในตอนที่เรากำลังจะทำการจบนะคะตัวเซสชันโคชชิ่งแล้วเนี่ยค่ะเราก็ต้องให้เกียรตินะคะลูกค้าหรือ client ของเราด้วยนะคะไม่ว่าจะเป็นประสบการณ์ต่างๆที่เราได้เรียนรู้ร่วมกันนะคะก่อนที่เราจะทำการจบเซสชันในการโค้ชนั้นๆค่ะเดี๋ยวขออนุญาตไปหน้าถัดไปได้เลยค่ะ
All right, great. Thank you. Okay. So, what can we do in terms of, creating placement? What does it really mean? So, I kind of like tried to put together my ideas. The really placement is letting our client know exactly what's about to happen, what we are trying to achieve together, and where we are in the particular coaching conversation. What are we working on? Are we establishing the goal? Are we exploring the deeper awareness around the goal? Are we creating our options? Those kinds of things. So making sure that we are always clear about what we are talking about, where we are in the session, and and just making sure that as a coach we are able to clarify back to our client what's important, what we're hearing, what the meaning of the conversation is. So to create placement, it really helps us to be able to focus on the issue together, right? And I kind of hesitate in saying focus on the issue together because actually it's our client that is focusing on the issue. And then we're focusing on the client and we're trying to find out where is their thinking right now in terms of like the direction that they're going, and what kind of questions can I ask my client that might help them think in different directions, different perspectives, help them broaden their idea about what they're thinking about or deepen their idea about what they're thinking or feeling. But being able to have that focus is very important. And of course, that requires a lot of coaching presence as well. What we're trying to do is really support the creation of what we call mental maps for the coachee. So often our coachee may be clear about the goal they want to achieve, but that goal might be going against their current mindset. The current way they're thinking will not allow them to move towards seeing or finding the solutions that they want. So in that case, we need to help them to open their mind and create new neural maps in their brain that will allow them to have some sort of insight that can help them to propel forward and have new ideas and new perspectives, which gives them a new beginning. And then, that's the aha moment, right? Aha just means, oh, I think I find a way out of my mindset that I'm stuck in, and I can see a different direction I can go. And, that's why it's so exciting. It's like when you it's like when you're working maybe on a puzzle, or you're trying to figure something out that's difficult to figure out, and the answer comes, and just that kind of shock of happiness and joy that you figured something out, right? That's what we want to try to do by creating mental mind maps or exploring the mental maps with our coachee. And placement, like I said before, basically it really helps to reduce the uncertainty that we might have in the conversation. Like, you know, what are we actually talking about? If the coachee is confused by your questions, or is kind of confused about where we are right now in the conversation, um, that's going to reduce their ability to be open and to be creative. We want to try to eliminate as much an uncertainty as possible about what we are doing in the conversation, because we want our client to be totally focusing on being able to be comfortable not knowing exactly what's going on. That's going to allow them to explore within themselves at the subconscious level. And if they have uncertainty about what we're doing at the surface level, probably they won't be as able to explore at a deeper level. So really making sure that, again, what we're doing with our client is very clear, and that our client is certain about what they're doing. And of course, our client should feel that they are at equal status with us. Um, and that goes both ways, actually. I've had executive clients who probably think more of themselves than they think of me. But they've been successful, they've been hardworking, they have a certain idea about achievement and success, and maybe their position sometimes. Um, so I need to try to find a way that we can equalize that relationship, and a lot of that has to do with building some rapport with the with that person. And then on the other side, we don't want our client to feel that they are somehow below us, that we are kind of like a teacher or something like that. So again, building rapport, making sure we're really clear about what we're doing together, will tend to equalize the relationship. When there's an equal relationship, then it just provides a better um, environment for equal sharing as well, for the coachee to feel that they can be vulnerable to me, with me, to make sure that I, as a coach, feel that I can ask questions that might be quite exploratory and might be quite uncertain. And that's vulnerability on my side. As a coach, I want to be able to ask questions that go deep and maybe don't have clear answers. The questions I ask may be very abstract, and that's a little bit scary as a coach, right? Because you, again, you kind of want to make sure your coachee feels you know what you're doing. And when you start asking some weird questions, they might go, I don't know, what is he asking? But but those deep and kind of weird questions can bring out like some amazing results. So we have to have the confidence as a coach to be able to to share those things and to be vulnerable and know that our coachee will accept it and that it's just part of the process. And finally, of course, creating placement. It's really important that we check ourselves, that we don't assume that we know what the client means, but we offer feedback and clarification and paraphrasing and mirroring to check in with our client to make sure that we're on the same page. So really good clarification is important throughout the conversation, and that will greatly reduce the amount of assumptions that we make about what our client is saying, or it will reduce the judgment that we have as a coach, because we're checking with our client to make sure that what we heard is the same thing that the client meant to say. And that keeps us in check, makes the client feel comfortable that we're really listening to them, and brings us together as we move forward in the conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree for the placement, because whenever I did it on the coaching session, most of the coaches, they feel like, oh, someone really listened to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. ขอบคุณค่ะ ก็สำหรับหน้านี้นะคะ Sorry, do you
No,
want to
I'm
say
fine.
anything?
I'm fine.
โอเค ขอบคุณค่ะ ค่ะสำหรับนะคะหน้านี้ก็เป็นการโค้ชทอมก็อธิบายเกี่ยวกับเรื่องของการ placement ค่ะคือจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยมันก็คือเป็นการที่เราเนี่ยเช็คกับ client ของเรานะคะว่าเรากับ client ของเราเนี่ยยังอยู่ด้วยกันหรือเปล่าเราเข้าใจตรงกันหรือเปล่าเนาะก็คือเป็นแบบ on the same page หรือเปล่านะคะมันทำให้1ค่ะคุณไม่ต้องคาดเดานะคะไม่ต้องมาใช้การตัดสินหรือคิดเอาเองนะคะก็คือสามารถที่จะ placement ไปได้เลยถามกลับไปเลยนะคะว่าถูกต้องไหมหรือว่าเราเข้าใจตรงกันหรือเปล่านะคะให้ใช้คำว่าเราเนาะไม่ใช่คำว่าแบบโค้ชนะคะให้ใช้คำว่าเราเนาะแล้วก็อย่างที่บอกค่ะในเรื่องของการโฟกัสในเรื่องของ dilemma เนี่ยคือโคชชี่เขาจะโฟกัสที่ issue หรือ dilemma ของเขาอยู่แล้วนะคะแต่ว่าคนที่เป็นโค้ชเนี่ยเราจะโฟกัสไปที่ตัวบุคคลก็คือตัวโคชชี่นะคะซึ่งจะทำให้เราอะค่ะเหมือนไม่ได้เอาตัวเองลงไปนะคะแต่ว่าเราเป็นคนที่จะชวนเขาลองปรับนะคะ perspective มุมมองต่างๆนะคะหรือว่า mental map นะคะเหมือนที่โค้ชทอมบอกไปชวนในการที่จะแบบเฮ้ยพาไปให้เห็นมุมมองอื่นๆนะคะเพราะบางครั้งเนี่ยเขาอาจจะติดอยู่ในมุมมองเดิมๆนะคะแล้วก็ในการที่เราทำ placement นะคะมันจะลดความไม่แน่นอนลงไปได้แล้วก็ที่สำคัญเลยในการที่เราคอยทำ placement อยู่ตลอดนะคะมันจะเป็นการที่สร้างความรู้สึกเท่ากันนะคะเท่ากันทั้งคู่นะคะหมายความว่าต้องไม่มีฝ่ายใดฝ่ายหนึ่งรู้สึกว่าตัวเองสูงกว่าหรือว่าต่ำกว่านะคะควรต้องอยู่เท่ากันนั่นเองนะคะและนี่ก็เป็นข้อดีของการทำ placement ค่ะเดี๋ยวขออนุญาตไปหน้าถัดไปเลยค่ะ
Great.
All right.
So this is just kind of like giving some practical ideas about when we make placement. So one of the most important parts of making placement is the timing that we have as a coach. Because it's going to be a much different conversation if it's an hour-long coaching session or a 90-minute coaching session, compared to maybe you only have 15 or 20 minutes to coach. You really need to make sure that you're upfront and clear with your client about how much time you're going to be working together. And I found when I say, okay, we have 20 minutes to work together, then what would you like to explore with me? Kind of automatically, the coachee will kind of like shrink down their goal a little bit. If they consciously know they only have 20 minutes to work on something, they're not going to say, I want to work on my 10-year life plan for
20 minutes, I don't think so.
In 20 minutes? I don't think so. That kind of goal is probably 10 sessions over the next 6 months. But if they know that they have 20 minutes, they might say, well, I'd like to explore how I can stop procrastinating so much during the week. I don't know, or something like that, or how I can prioritize my work in the workday. Okay, in 20 minutes you can probably get something going there. So it's always good to make sure that we're very upfront about the timing, and then also make sure that as a coach we are using good direct communication, which is managing the time of our session. So again, if we have an hour, let's say we have an hour, we want to spend at least the last 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes exploring actions and support and all that stuff. So we need to be able to manage, like, we see, okay, we're at minute 45. Okay, so I think we've explored many things, in your awareness about this situation, and I'm wondering if this would be a good time for us to start exploring your options for moving forward. So as a coach, we have to be quite upfront and manage the time. And of course, if our client wants to keep exploring and digging into their awareness, then we allow them to do that. So anytime that we mention, like, oh, okay, so this is a good time, I think, is this a good time to explore actions? I'm asking permission from my client to move in the conversation to different parts, just making sure that it's always the coachee's agenda. Yeah. We also want to make sure that we are focused, right? So I think I said this before. We want to, every once in a while, it's great to bring up the measure of success or the session goal. We may have a great, like, 10-minute, like, exploration into our coachee's awareness or something that they've been pondering in their mind. And we kind of finish that little part of the conversation. And it's a good time then to go, so I'm just wondering, how do you feel what we just talked about relates to our session goal? So going back to the focus of the goal, you know, I try to see it as, like, we want to have, like, some really cool, creative, weird conversations with our client, go off in all kinds of different directions, but we need to pull it back in every once in a while. We need to, for it to be effective and for the learning to happen, we need to relate it back to the goal. So expand and then refocus and expand and refocus. And that's kind of up to us to do that. Also the objective, what is the goal? Are we moving forward, and are we moving towards the objective that we have, or are we going in a different direction? And like I said before, we can go in a different direction if that's what the client wants to do, but normally they want to stay in focus, right? So we really should be awake and listening to our client. If we feel that we're going off in a different direction, we might need to restate the objective of what we're doing. The intent is, so we have the goal, and one of my coaches that I was working with, he had a very nice way of putting it. He said he feels there's a session goal, or there's a dilemma, and then there's a hidden dilemma. So again, the dilemma might be, or the challenge, I want to lose 5 kilograms in 2 months. But what is going on below the iceberg? That's the hidden dilemma. So what in their thinking, or in their situation, or in their ability to be able to complete goals, what is it that's kind of like keeping them from doing that? What are their deeper feelings about that? What are their values, and how do they relate to that? That's all the intent. What's driving our client to be able to do the goal? And we need to explore that, or we'll have a much more effective conversation if we can relate to the client at a deeper level. Their commitment, their drive, their values, their beliefs, their feelings, blah blah blah, all of that stuff is really important. And that's what I call the intent of the coaching. So our brain has to be in tune with what the coachee wants to achieve above the iceberg, which is very important. And that's where you will see the result, right? But also we need to be in tune with, okay, at a deeper level, where is my client in relation to this dilemma? And how can I connect with them in a way that is going to help them at both levels to achieve what they want? And then finally, the overall perspective. I think I've talked a little bit about this. It's like perspective is the way that we see something, or the set of beliefs or values or feelings that combine together to create how we look at maybe our challenge, how we look at ourselves. And sometimes we have to help our client to see in different perspectives. If the perspective they have about their challenge or whatever is not being helpful for them, it's not moving them forward. And very often this is the case, right? And I think I mentioned this before. The client may know what they want to do, but their current way of thinking about it is not moving them forward. So we may need to help them see things in a different way. And if they can do that, they might have that insight or that that's going to, make them explode and figure out what they need to do and move forward. Yeah. So these are the different ideas around when we can make placement.
โอเคขอบคุณค่ะก็สำหรับหน้านี้นะคะน่าจะตอบคำถามนะหลายๆท่านที่แบบว่าแล้วเมื่อไหร่ที่โค้ชนะคะเขาต้องทำ placement กันบ้างนะคะก็อย่างที่บอกอย่างแรกเลยเรื่องเวลานะคะเพราะว่าบางครั้งเวลาในการโค้ชแต่ละครั้งก็อาจจะไม่เท่ากันนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นต้องmake placement ก่อนเลยนะให้เข้าใจตรงกันนะคะโฟกัสค่ะเนาะว่าวันนี้สิ่งที่เราจะคุยกันนะคะมันตรงกันหรือเปล่านะคะ objective นี่คืออาจจะมองเป็นในเรื่องของsession goal นะคะหรือว่า measure of success ก็ได้นะคะเราต้อง make placement ให้เข้าใจตรงกันนะคะระหว่างเราเนาะกับ client ของเราด้วยนะคะส่วนถัดมาค่ะอันนี้ชอบมากนะคะคำว่า the intent เนี่ยคือจริงๆมันแปลว่าเจตนาเนาะแต่ว่ามันเหมือนกับว่ามันเป็นไดเลมม่าซ้อนไดเลมม่าเหมือนกับที่โค้ชทอมบอกนะคะว่าบางทีเนี่ยประโยคแรกที่โคชชี่เขาพูดกับเราเนี่ยมันอาจจะยังไม่ได้เป็นโกของเขาหรือเป็นไดเลมม่าของเขาจริงๆก็ได้นะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเองเนี่ยเมื่อโค้ชได้ยินนะคะต่างๆหรือใช้คำถามนะโดยเฉพาะเลเวล PCC นะคะแล้วพอเหมือนเราฟังไปสักพักนึงแล้วเนี่ยเราก็อาจจะmake placement ได้นะคะว่าที่เราได้ยินเนี่ยมันเป็นแบบนี้นะคะอันนี้ก็สามารถที่จะใช้การ make placement ได้เนาะสุดท้ายนะคะเป็นเรื่องของ perspective นะคะอันนี้สำคัญมากเพราะว่าหน้าที่ของโค้ชเลยอะค่ะเราต้องช่วยให้ client ของเราเนี่ยเขาได้เห็นในมุมอื่นๆนะคะเพื่อที่จะreframe ให้เขาได้เห็นมุมมองใหม่ๆนะคะให้เขาเห็นว่ามันยังมีวิธีการอื่นๆหรือมุมมองอื่นๆอีกนะคะซึ่งอย่างที่บอกค่ะก็ต้องมีการทำ placement ตรงนี้ด้วยเหมือนกันนะคะเพื่อให้โคชชี่เนี่ยเขาเข้าใจนะคะตรงกันกับเรานั่นเองเนาะในการโค้ชนะคะขออนุญาตไปหน้าถัดไปเลยค่ะ
Great.
Yes.
So I'll go through this kind of quickly because it looks like a lot of bullet points. But how do we as a coach keep things on track? So what are some more practical things again to keep in mind as we're coaching? So first is like really listening, what I call listening generously. So really deciding at the beginning of any coaching session that we are invested 100% in our client, in believing in their potential, in listening for possibility, in being super curious about what they're doing, all those things. So we put all of our love and all of our attention into the session, and our coachee really feels that as well. If we are so focused and we're focused with a clear, generous, compassionate, empathetic attitude, it's going to relax our coachee. It's going to show them it's okay. We're here together. I believe in you 100%. And I want you to share with me everything. I want you to go as deep as you want to go with me. And it's going to be great, right? So just being generous with how we approach our coaching. Listening for meaning. How can we put together different things that we're hearing throughout the conversation? How can we again, like what I was talking about, how can we understand like the meaning above the iceberg and the meaning below the iceberg? And if we're unsure or we think that it's useful for our client to dive down below, that we take that chance to ask them those deeper questions. So really checking in, it's all about meaning. It's all about, is our client clear about what they feel, about what they think around their challenge? Or are they clear about themselves? Is there something that they need to know that's going to help them to move forward? So it's really, really important that we check in on meaning. What does our client mean? And that's all about, being curious and just being open with our client. And listening with intent. I just talked about that, right? So listening listening for those deeper meanings from our client, listening for the feelings that we can hear from them, listening for when they're maybe confused about their values. Or oftentimes, what happens is if we explore a little bit with our clients' values, those values are not in line with what they are trying to do above the surface. So we need to try to help them find some kind of alignment between their values and beliefs and what they want to do. And that can just make it very clear for them then what they need to do if they are recognizing that their goals are in line or not in line with their values. They can adjust things. And of course, bringing empathy. Empathy, we always want to make sure that through our clarification, through just noticing the types of feelings that we're noticing from the client and asking them about that, it creates a really strong relationship. I always go back to, I think that the coach has such a special role with the coachee, something that's very different from any other relationship. And it's because we're listening without judgment. We're listening with empathy. We're listening generously. And where else can you get that in your life? Most people we know in our life, okay, we're friendly, but they don't want to work that hard. That's why they need a coach, someone that can really listen to them. But listen, like I said before, listen effectively, listen to bring usefulness to what someone is trying to do, and not just point out things that are interesting, but help someone to, you know, increase their own awareness and transform themselves into something more than they are. Refraining from interfering, so keeping yourself quiet. It can be hard sometimes, but once you get used to it, once you realize that, I'm just here for the client, for them to let me know where they are, what they're doing, I can be quiet in myself. That also means like not going, and maybe I talked about this last time, but not going, aha, oh, because that's considered as interfering. Actually, with the ICF, they say, those, and that if you were like, for example, getting your PCC level, they would mark you down if you do that a lot. So practice yourself just keeping your mouth closed. and and it can work as well if you're working on Zoom or whatever. You can put yourself on mute while your client is talking, and so that way you keep it away from them. Because every time you say it's a judgment as well. Somehow it's a judgment. If I go, oh, that's good, that's a judgment. We think it's good. Does the client think it's good? If we want to, instead of saying, oh, that's a good idea, ask them, so how do you feel about that idea? Let them decide if it's a good idea or not, right? Um, and I'm not saying that we always have to be quiet. I think even sometimes there is a time for, oh, that's great. I think that's okay. But for the most part, we should try to eliminate all of those little phrases and little noises that might interfere our client. Right? I talked about assumptions. So being able to keep ourselves clear in what we're hearing, being mindful and present can help us to reduce that. Listening to the words is very important as well. What I always like to explore, like the words that my clients using. If they say, I really need to work on my time management, I'm going to go, time management, what does that mean to you? What's good time management? What's bad time management? Where are you right now in your time management? Who's someone that you think has good time management? Things like that. Helps us to explore these kind of vague metaphorical phrases that we use all the time in our language, because we can help our client to define for themselves what they really want. Is it time management, or is it actually they want more time for their family? Is that what they're really focused on? Or what does time management mean, or what are the words that they are talking about? And then finally, listening for emotion. Of course, that goes that's just as important as understanding the meaning of our client. We want to understand where that meaning is coming from. And from emotions usually springs the action. So we want to make sure that our client is even clear about their own emotions. So often clients or people in general don't even know what they're feeling. I mean, if I ask everyone right now, how are you feeling? How long does it take for you to connect to how you're actually feeling? Even for myself, it takes me a second, and I'm like, I guess I feel comfortable. I feel like in sharing mode, so I feel generous a little bit, But it's important for us to allow our client to recognize and sit with their feelings, and even be grateful for those feelings, whatever those feelings are. Even if they're feeling bad about something, it's telling them something about themselves. So these are just some of the things that you can keep yourself on track to make sure that you have good placement.
So just my curious, so which one is the most challenging one for you?
I would still, the one that I'm always working on is listening without assumptions, I think. Because we always bring, even as good as our coaching presence can be, I think our brain is, it doesn't stop thinking. It doesn't stop interfering in what we're hearing, right? Because we're always putting things through our brain's filter. So just making sure and checking with myself, am I really focused on what's going to be best for my client? Or am I still kind of like thinking things over a little too much? Because if I'm assuming things, then that means that I maybe have some different ideas about what might be better for my client. But that's why it's so good to check in, right? To clarify, to give feedback, because you're going to find out if your assumptions are if your assumptions are in line with what you're hearing or not. And yeah.
I see.
How about for you?
Thank
What do you
you.
think? Which one for you is? Oops.
For me, at first it was reframing from interfering because at first I still like yeah. So now I'm working on it too.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And one trick that kind of helped me for that, and I've shared this with some of my coaches, is if you keep if you keep notes on a piece of paper, or you keep notes maybe on your iPad or whatever you're trying to work on in your coaching, you can put a little phrase at the top of your page. So what helped me with this one was I put oh, and then I put like strike through each one, and I put it very big at the top of my notes page. So whenever I took a little note, I saw the and I was like, okay, I gotta not say that. And it helped me. I did that for a few sessions, and it really just dropped down the amount of times I do that. So, but we all need to find our own way that to work on these things.
Yeah, thank you for your tips then. ขอบคุณค่ะ ค่ะก็จริงๆนะคะสำหรับหน้านี้ค่ะก็เป็นการที่โค้ชนะคะช่วยโค้ชทอมนะคะก็ช่วยสรุปมาให้ว่าแล้วเราจะทำให้การโค้ชในครั้งนั้นเนี่ยมันเป็นแทร็กเดียวกันมันเข้าใจตรงกันได้อย่างไรบ้างนะคะหลักๆเลยเนี่ยเป็นเรื่องเกี่ยวกับการฟังทั้งนั้นเลยนะคะฟังอย่างเปิดกว้างเนาะนะคะฟังเพื่อหาความหมายนะคะฟังเพื่อเราจะได้มาดูว่าคำที่ client เขาพูดเนี่ยมันคืออะไรนะคะฟังเพื่อ emotion หมายถึงว่าเฮ้ยถ้าเราได้ยินแล้วเรารู้สึกว่า notice ว่ามันมีเรื่องของ emotion เข้ามานะคะก็ให้ client เขาสามารถที่จะสำรวจตัวเองนะคะได้อย่างลึกขึ้นนะคะรวมไปถึงเนี่ยฟังอย่างไม่คาดเดานะคะเพราะอย่างที่บอกถ้าเกิดว่าเรารู้สึกว่ามันเริ่มมีการคาดเดาเราก็สามารถใช้การ placement ได้นะคะแต่หัวสิ่งหนึ่งที่ชอบมากเลยคืออย่างที่บอกเราต้องใส่ความ empathy ลงไปในเซสชันด้วยนะคะแล้วก็ในระหว่างที่ทำการโค้ชนะคะโค้ชทอมก็แนะนำว่าให้โค้ชเนี่ยให้เงียบไปเลยนะคะให้เรา keep quiet นะไม่ต้องแบบอตามเพราะว่าการที่เราไปอตามพูดแบบฮะนะคะมันเป็นการไปขัดนะคะกระบวนการทางความคิดเนาะของโคชชี่นั่นเองนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยจริงๆโค้ชทอมก็แชร์ว่ามีวิธีที่เขาใช้เนาะในการที่จะแบบไม่พูดตามนะคะก็แล้วแต่เทคนิคของแต่ละคนเลยค่ะขอสไลด์หน้าถัดไปเลยค่ะAll
right. So just to kind of recap a little bit, keeping things on track. Like I said, clarify as often as possible, just to ensure that we're both in mutual understanding and on track. Use direct communication to manage our clients' direction that they're going, making sure that we can cover everything we need to have a full complete session, managing the time, managing the exploration our client is taking if we need to kind of try to reduce it, keeping them on track as well. Confirm and reconfirm, like I said, the goal throughout. So like I said, we may go many different places in our conversation, but every once in a while, 2 or 3 times during the session, bring it back to the session goal. So what we've just talked about, what does that mean to you in terms of your goal of ... Reconfirming is great. And have your client summarize their learning at the end of the conversation. Also very important, summarizing learning and the impact. A great question I like to ask, or I ask permission to ask is, I'm wondering how your thinking may have changed since the beginning of our session till now. How your thinking around this goal may have changed. Or I'm wondering if you could summarize for me, if you would like, your main learning points, something like that. So allowing your client to focus on the changes in their thinking and their feeling, etc. Let's see. I can't really see the bottom two because there we go. Okay. Making connections to the goal at all levels. So like I said, what does it mean to them in terms of the practical results they want? What does it mean to them in terms of their building new habits or behaviors or actions? And that's all above the iceberg, right? But what does it mean to them as well in terms of how they feel about the goal, what they really think about it, what's important to them about it, how it affects or is in line or not in line with their values, right? So really making sure that we make all those connections with the goal and allow our client to explore that. And you're right, don't assume you and the client understand one another, right? So that goes back to clarify often. So those are some basic but key things that we need to keep in mind when we are working with our client in order to keep things on track. Yeah.
ค่ะโอเค
Okay.
I'm sorry I'm a bit delay
Oh,
ขอ
no,
โทษ
that's
ที
right.
ค่ะ ดีเลย์ไปนิดนึงค่ะ ก็นะคะหน้านี้ก็จะเป็นการที่แชร์ทิปส์นั่นเองนะคะว่าเราจะทำยังไงให้เรา keeping things on track ได้นะคะก็อย่างที่บอกค่ะ clarify often นะคะก็คือใช้การ clarify ใช้การ placement นะคะหรือว่าใช้ direct communication ค่ะรวมถึงนะคะการที่เรา confirm แล้วก็ reconfirm นะคะ goal หรือว่า measure of success นะคะระหว่างเรากับ client ให้เข้าใจตรงกันนะคะในตอนจบก็อย่าลืมให้client เนี่ยเขาสรุปการเรียนรู้ด้วยนะคะแล้วก็อันนี้ที่ย่าชอบมากเลยคือเรื่องของการ make connection นะคะว่าในส่วนของเป้าหมายเนี่ยบางทีมันเป็นทั้งที่เหนือภูเขาน้ำแข็งกับใต้ภูเขาน้ำแข็งนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเองเนี่ยถ้าเราสามารถที่จะเชื่อมโยงเป้าหมายได้ทั้งที่เป็นเลเวลของเหนือภูเขาน้ำแข็งนะคะกับเลเวลที่เป็น value เป็นตัวตนของเขาได้เนี่ยนะคะมันจะทำให้โคชชี่เขาได้สำรวจตัวเองแล้วก็นำไปสู่การตระหนักรู้ของตัวเองได้ดีมากยิ่งขึ้นนะคะสุดท้ายเลยค่ะก็คืออย่าคาดเดาไปเองนะคะอย่าคาดเดาไปว่าเราจะเข้าใจตรงกันนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นก็คือให้ placement นะคะเพื่อให้เข้าใจตรงกันเนาะนะคะระหว่างเรากับclient นั่นเองค่ะเดี๋ยวขอสไลด์หน้าถัดไปได้เลยค่ะ
Great.
โอเค yeah so now we coming to Q&A
Yes. So
ค่ะ
anyone has any question?
ค่ะ
I think
ตอน
our
นี้ท่าน
time
ไหน
is
มีคำถาม
over.
yeah
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry ตอนนี้ท่านไหนมีคำถามนะคะเดี๋ยวพิมพ์มาได้เลยนะคะเดี๋ยวเราจะได้ถามโค้ชทอมกันวันนี้เนี่ยบอกเลยว่าน่าสนใจมาก keeping our coaching conversation on track and effective นะคะก็ได้มาฟังกันแล้วว่ามันมีเทคนิคอะไรบ้างนะคะมีคำถามถามมาได้เลยนะคะพิมพ์มาได้นะคะเดี๋ยวย่าจะได้อ่านคำถามให้นะคะ You can ask in Thai or in English okay.Yeah, we have question.
Yes.
Does interfering also include body language like nodding or smiling as well?
Very interesting question. I think body language, smiling probably would be okay unless your coachee is talking about something serious, right? Then you probably don't want to smile at what they're saying. And the reverse, right? I don't think you should be frowning in your conversation or looking too serious as well. Because it could interfere the if your coachee has to wonder, why is he smiling when I'm saying this? Then it might interfere with the coachee's willingness to share deeper. So I think being in touch with our client's energy is what's the most important thing. So if we are talking about a fairly serious issue, then yeah, having our energy focused on that issue, but not putting like a super serious frowny kind of look, but just making sure we understand where our coachee wants to explore and focusing in on that. And that's a great question. But yeah, also it can be a good thing to kind of mimic a little bit our coachee's body language. So if they have their hands on the table, you might want to put your hands on the table too, and that shows a connection. And I'm not saying kind of like copy everything your coachee does, because
It's like a lap point, isn't it?
but showing that you are related to them. Yes, right. It builds that rapport. Yeah, exactly. So, but that's a great question. Yeah. So yes, it does. Yeah. So really just checking in with our client and seeing where they are at, like physically, and yeah, trying to kind of match that energy more than anything else.
Okay, thank you ค่ะขอบคุณคำถามจากคุณจีด้วยนะคะถ้าอ่านผิดอ่านชื่อผิดต้องขออภัยด้วย Alright, now we have a question coming up. For the next question is from คุณธีระค่ะ He would like to have some ideas about reframing question. So say like parents, parents they will have some kind of a belief about helped, because they will
Mhm.
trust, the news from the lie about,
Yes.
but somehow it can be fake news, so can you just
Yes.
sharing like reframing question to take them to see another perspective?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I guess, I mean, a good example, especially during COVID, is I think we can all, and this was how long have we had COVID now? Has it been like 2 years? I can't even remember.
2 years, yeah.
About 2 years. Yeah, when it first came out, remember how there were so many unknowns about COVID, right? Plus, we didn't have the vaccine, and people were dying, and everyone was told to stay home. I I feel that in that case, many people felt like a lack of control over what was happening, right? And even though you can be safe in your house, you still like, oh, if I go outside, what's going to happen? Or, I'm just scared in general. That would tend to shut people down from really wanting to do anything, right? Except having this fear. Because when fear takes over our mind, the fear is all coming from our limbic system, from our ancient brain, right? And it doesn't allow us much use of our prefrontal cortex. So in that example, if we are living kind of in fear, we're living in a sense that we have lost control, we may need to reframe our situation. So yeah, there are things out there that we can't control. But if you think about it, what can we control right now? And what can we control that might help us to move forward? It could be learning something new. It could be making sure that our household is as free as possible from any kind of danger. And then just so that's one idea about reframing, is like when we feel that there is only a certain way that we can move, we can always think about, well, yeah, but there's we always have some control over something. We need to figure out what that is, right? Reframing also works well if something bad happened to us in the past. We had a bad experience. It may affect the way that we move forward. We may be afraid to do something. Let's say we had a bad breakup with a girlfriend, right, in the past, and it really kind of like gave me um, some you know not really believing in myself or this or that. So I go to the coach and I say, oh, this all happened. So as a coach, I might ask, so from that experience, what did you learn about yourself that can help you as you move forward? What lessons did you learn from that experience? And how can you, with the strengths that you have, face the future where this situation might come up again? How would you do it differently, knowing what you know now, knowing your strengths and who you are and what you have to offer? So those are the types of things that I might do with a client, right? It's not about like focusing on the bad thing that happened. It's recognizing it, being aware of it, having gratitude for it because it gave you a lesson in your life, finding out, oh, okay, well, there are good things about me. How can I bring those things out, and how can I use those things to move forward and have a different experience next time? So
Thank
I guess
you.
that's my answer. Great question. Thank you.
Right. Even my mom sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
ขอบคุณคำถามของคุณธีระนะคะหวังว่าจะตอบคำ
Thank
ถาม
you.
เนาะให้กับคุณธีระนะคะ Okay, next question from คุณสราวุธนะคะ he would like to ask at the end, so if the result say like it's not coming to as we said from the beginning, as we expect from the beginning, either coach and coachee, as a coach, do we have any technique or do you have any advice to understand the situation both side, coach and coachee?
If it doesn't come, well, I mean, if we are kind of reconfirming our session goal throughout and there it goes in a different direction, then we should be able to follow with them towards what they want. But maybe what he's saying is like, what if we aren't able to complete the goal or find the solution or meet the challenge? In that case, when we like, let's say it's getting to the end of the hour and we want to go into some action steps, but we're not really clear about the result, then that may require us to schedule another session. But we don't want to leave our client without any actions to take. So I might say, well, it seems like we still have some work to do in this goal and what you're trying to explore. And I'm wondering what you might be able to do in the next 2 weeks before we see one another that might help you to contemplate, and come up with some ideas around the goal, on your own. What questions might you be able to ask yourself? What questions might you be able to explore? And how might you explore that? Would you do that just thinking to yourself or writing in a journal or, doing something like that? So what are you going to do? So yeah, if we don't finish what we need to finish and we only have a set amount of time, that's fine. But make sure that you have some kind of action that your client's going to be working on that might help them on their own. So the next time you see them, you can re-explore and maybe they have some clear ideas. Because sometimes as well, I think I've talked about this, that the insight or aha moment doesn't come during the session. It might come a day later. They always talk about like when someone's sleeping and they wake up, they might have it, or they always say like, insight can come like when someone's taking a shower, right? Just like, they realize what they need to do. And that's happened with me, like it's been 2 or 3 days after the session. And I think it just takes someone's brain longer time to put things together and they can have that. So I think being patient, not trying to rush things. And if you don't come to like a clear solution at the end, then just make sure that there is a chance for there to be contemplation and learning, and you can explore that in your next session.
Right. Thank you, and hope Coach Tom answer คุณสราวุธ question นะคะ For the next one from คุณอ้อค่ะ so she would like to know if a coach, say like manager as a coach, and then her team, they just looking for answer, not a coach, not a coaching way. So as a coach, what should we do?
Right. Okay. So that's a challenge, especially if you are operating in like a dual role of manager and a coach, right? So the most important thing is to first kind of educate your team about what coaching really is. So you might want to take an hour, on a day to just deliver a little slideshow and talk about, this is the thing, these are the things that I do as a coach. I want to coach all of you. As a manager, I feel it's important. But my role as a manager and my role as a coach are very different. So here's what I do as a coach. Just make it very clear to your team when you are in a coaching role, these are the things you do, these are the things you don't do, right? And then stick to that. So when you then go to coach your team, you stick to the coaching role. And if they start to ask for advice or answers or whatever, you just remind them. It's like, yeah, I actually may have some ideas for you in moving forward in this, but right now I'm your coach. And as a coach, I'm helping you to explore your own thinking. Coach is all about self-directed, and I know this may be a challenge for you, but I'm here to support you in coming up with your own ideas. So I think it's just very important that you're able to make sure those that you coach know what you are doing as a coach and that you're not their manager at that point. And wearing the two hats can be challenging, but if they get used to it, then you should be able to use it okay.
Right. Thank you very
Great
much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Coach.
great question. Yeah. All right. นะคะ So I think no more Q&A.
Okay.
Right.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you for the questions.
ค่ะ All right. So for the next one is about finding and designing meaningful goals. Wow. Useful. I need to say it. Useful session.
Yes. Exactly.
Right. So we'll come back to see you once again on next 2 weeks. This is Wednesday, 29 September. So tonight, please join me to give a big hand to Coach Tom. ขอบคุณโค้ชทอมมากเลยนะคะ Thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Coach Nanya, for everything. And
Right.
Blue, our manager, is great. Everyone that helped out tonight, so nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much นะคะแล้วก็เดี๋ยวเราจะกลับมาเจอกันค่ะในวันพุธนะคะที่29กันยายนนะคะเวลาเดิม 20:00 นนะคะกับหัวข้อ Finding and Designing Meaningful Goals นั่นเองค่ะใครที่นะคะอยากจะรู้ว่าthe coaching journey ของเรานะในรอบหน้านะคะเราจะมาคุยเรื่องนี้กันจะมีเนื้อหาอะไรบ้างนะคะน่าสนใจยังไงนะคะเรียนเชิญได้เลยนะวันพุธที่29นั่นเองนะคะวันนี้หมดเวลาของนัญญาลงไปแล้วนะคะอย่าลืมค่ะถ้าเกิดอยากจะติดตามนะคะข่าวสารข้อมูลดีๆค่ะเกี่ยวกับนะคะการโค้ชแล้วก็ไปได้เลยที่ Facebook นะคะสถาบันโค้ชไทยนั่นเองค่ะวันนี้ขอบคุณพี่ๆทุกคนมากเลยนะคะที่มาร่วมเรียนรู้แล้วก็ถามคำถามเนาะนะคะเยี่ยมไปเลยนะคะเดี๋ยวอย่างไรเรากลับมาเจอกันวันพุธที่29นั่นเองวันนี้ลาไปแล้วสวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good night, everyone.